and welcome, Your Excellency, distinguished invitees, participants, and members of CMA Sri Lanka. So this is another Founders Day, and there is the oration, as well as another very important ceremonial aspect of which we shall tell you in a moment. But as is mentioned, we have the oration on a very interesting topic, and that has everything to do with the future. And everyone these days seems to be focused on the future, considering the many impediments that seem to be facing communities, especially the corporate community, and commerce and industry in one place after another seems to be having to review how they're going to deal with the future of work. And that's exactly where the focus will be on as far as the subject matter of our oration goes. And we have Professor Ho Yu Ki from Singapore, who will be our speaker. But the CMA is now veritably recognized as a venerable institution. Upward of 20 years now, it has been in service in this country and enjoys the stature of a national professional management accounting institution. And in the course of today's program, at some point later on, we will be able to review some of the progress made. In fact, we might call this the journey of CMA in Sri Lanka. And in the earliest days, back in the 1999 and so on and so forth, there was a flurry of activity, and that included inputs from the CMA of Canada. That's the Certified Management Accountants of Canada. And they were instrumental in providing much help and then fostering the growth of the organization here in Sri Lanka, which explains why we have with us His Excellency, the High Commissioner for Canada to Sri Lanka. And he too will be brought into this scheme of things later on in our program. But on this particular occasion, which we refer to as the Founders Day, it is also an opportune time to induct the new council of management of CMA. And there has been a re-election and a reappointment, and all of those who will now serve for the period 2021 to 2023 will need to take their oath of office with their pledge. And to preside over this ceremonial event, there has been an invitation extended to one who hardly needs an introduction, and that's Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya. He's a founder, fellow member of CMA Sri Lanka, and also is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, as well as CIMA United Kingdom. And Mr. Amarasuriya is a senior member of the Advisory Council of CMA Sri Lanka. In his professional life, he has been a former chairman and managing director of Singer Sri Lanka, and also a former chairman of the Insurance Corporation of Sri Lanka. So we now will follow the formal procedure of administering the oath of office of the new committee, or should I say, the council, advisory council of the CMA Sri Lanka. So I'd like to hand over proceedings at this juncture to Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya.
Thank you, Arun. Just a few words of introduction. On behalf of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka was set up in 1999 as a society with technical assistance from CMA Canada and financial assistance from the Canadian International Agency, CIDA. So it seems that Canada has played a big role in setting up this institute. And on behalf of all of you, I would like to thank the Government of Canada and the people for this laudable support you gave us in setting up this institute. CIDA was launched on 3rd June 2000. It was my pleasure to be a founder member and serve on the Advisory Council and chairman of the Industrial Advisory Committee from the inception of incorporation by Act of Parliament in April 2009. CMA is the National Professional Management Accounting Institution in Sri Lanka. And over the years, CMA has steadily progressed to an institute of the size of 15,000 students and 2,500 members. And this is large for a small burgeoning institute. CMA has 3 patrons who are eminent citizens. Among them are 2 cabinet ministers, Professor G.L. Piris, Minister of Education, and Dr. Bandula Gunawardena, Minister of Trade, and His Excellency David Mackinnon, the Canadian High Commissioner who assisted the setting up of the Institute. These 3 gentlemen have been duly recognized by us for their great service rendered for the development of management accounting profession in Sri Lanka. Today, as a founder member of the Institute, I am privileged and honored to induct the council members for a 2-year term, 2021 to 2023. It is my privilege now, and I will induct President Professor Lakshman Vachavala, who has given yeoman service to education in Sri Lanka. And I will now read the oath of allegiance. I, Lakshman Professor Ravindra Vachavala, hereby affirm that I will faithfully serve the members and students of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka and fulfill all duties and responsibilities required as the President of the Council of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. I will, to the best of my ability, strive to achieve the high level of expectations that accompany the office of the President of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. I will also abide by the CMA Code of Ethics and maintain the highest standards of corporate governance, ethics, and integrity in the discharge of my duty.
I accept this office as President of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka.
I wish you all the best.
And we will now proceed with the induction of the Vice President, Mr. Hennayaka Bandara, who is a founder, fellow member of CMA Sri Lanka, and a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. And Mr. Bandara is the Vice President of the South Asian Federation of Accountants at the present time, that's SAFA, and also the former CEO of the National Savings Bank. Interestingly, in the realm of accountancy, he has served AAT Sri Lanka as a past president. And he's a recipient of the CMA Business Excellence Award in 2012 and served as a council member of CMA for a number of years, from 2012 to 2017. And he now serves as the vice president and has done so from 2017. And he's the chairman of the Education and Training Committee. So we now invite Mr. Hennayaka Budyansilage Hennayaka Bandara, FCMA, now to take his oath before Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya as vice president.
I, Hennayaka Bandara, hereby affirm that I will faithfully serve the members of and students of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka and fulfill all duties and responsibilities required as the Vice President of the Council of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. I will, to the best of my ability, strive to achieve the high level of expectations that accompanies the office of the Vice President of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. I will also abide by the CMA Code of Ethics and maintain the high standard of corporate governance, ethics, and integrity in the discharge of my duties.
I accept the position of Vice President of CMA Sri Lanka.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we will proceed with introducing by name those who will serve in the next period, 2021 onward, as council members. So I will introduce all of them by name, and then after the names have been completed in my recitation of them, then they will all be able to take their oath of office as presided over by Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya. So let me start off with Mr. JMUB Jayasekara, who's a founder, fellow member of CMA Sri Lanka, and is a fellow of the Chartered Institute, or should I say the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. And he too has served as a past president of AAT Sri Lanka. He's a recipient of the CMA Business Excellence Award in 2013, and he's the chairman of JMC Jayasekara Management Center Private Limited, and is also a Prajna Pradeepa Award winner from the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. Then next is Mr. Ruchira Prera, a fellow member of the CMA Sri Lanka and an associate member of CMA UK. He serves in the CMA's Governing Council from 2013 and is the chairman of the Members and Student Affairs Committee. Ruchira Prera is currently working at Biomedics Private Limited, Analytical Instruments Group, as the Vice President Finance of that corporate. Then the next council member who we introduce is Mr. Gajendra. Uvendran Gajendra is a fellow member of CMA Sri Lanka and a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. And he served in the CMA Seminars and Conference Committee, and is a partner at Kanesalingam and Company. He also functions as an independent non-executive director and chairman of the Audit Committee of Sanasa Life Insurance Company Limited. The next council member is Professor Harendra Karyavasam, who is the head of the Department of Accounting, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, and is the director of Accelerating Higher Education Expansion and Development Programs, which is a World Bank project, and in the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. He is a member of the Director Board of the National School of Business Management Limited, also known by the acronym NSBM. Then he's a member of the Board of Management of Postgraduate Institute of Archaeology, a member of the Board of Directors of Lanka Satasa Limited, and he serves in the CMA Council from the year 2017 onward, and has been nominated to hold that office by the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. Next council member is Mr. Manil Jayasinghe, a founder, fellow member of CMA Sri Lanka, and a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, of which he is now the president. And he's a partner, professionally partner at Ernst & Young, and he too was a recipient of the CMA Business Excellence Award a couple of years ago in 2019, serves on the CMA Council from 2017 and has been nominated by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. And finally, Mr. JPR Karunaratne, another of the council members. He's a fellow member of the CMA Sri Lanka and a fellow of CIMA UK. Currently works at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka as an assistant governor and is nominated to serve in office here as by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So all of those now introduced will take their collective oath as administered by Mr. Hemaka Amarasuri.
I hereby affirm that I will faithfully serve the members and students of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka and fulfill all duties and responsibilities required as a council member of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. I will, to the best of my ability, strive to achieve the high level of expectations that accompanies the office of the council member of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. I will also abide by the CMA Code of Ethics and maintain the highest standard of corporate governance, ethics, and integrity in the discharge of my duties.
I accept the position as the council member of CMA Sri Lanka.
I accept the position of the member of the Council of CMA Sri Lanka.
Thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we do not stray too far away from popular custom in that we would like to have all of those who are just inducted into office pose for a group photograph. Of course, this group is now a virtual assembly of participants, so we will have your cameras or videos all switched on, microphones off maybe, and we will have you pose for the shot. And the moment that capture has been completed, we shall proceed with our program.
We will also take a photograph with Professor Ho and Excellency David. If you can open up, High Commissioner. Right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, Arun.
Thank you. So that part of our ceremonial induction completed. Now, as was mentioned, we do have with us His Excellency David McKinnon, who is the High Commissioner for Canada in Sri Lanka. And on the basis of the historical link and commitment on the part of the Canadian government, well, we would like to have a word or two spoken by the High Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? All right.
Yes, indeed, can.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. No, I have been here for a few years, but not quite 20. So I was not here at the inception of this, but I'll take credit for my predecessors' forward-looking approach. Professor Lakshman Watawala, Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya, Professor Ho Yu Ki from the Singapore Institute of Technology, members and the Council of CMA Sri Lanka, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It really is a pleasure for me to come here today and, albeit virtually, to offer congratulations at the CMA Founders Day event and the induction of the new council members. I need to, of course, thank Professor Lakshman for inviting me back and for the warm welcome that I received. Without his vision and leadership, I think it's clear that CMA would not be what it is today. So I want to recognize his ongoing efforts to sustain the professionalism of this organization. Canada and Sri Lanka share strong people-to-people ties, and these are long partnerships in development and education and business. They stretch back in many cases before independence. And it's funny, I still find that the high-profile infrastructure that Canada provided in the first decades after Sri Lanka's independence are what stick in people's popular imagination. And those are of enduring benefit, of course. But I actually think that in recent decades, our most important investments have been in developing the human capital of this very creative island. In essence, these have been investments about supporting Sri Lankans to understand Sri Lanka's challenges for themselves and to find solutions that make sense in the local context. Canada's original support for the establishment of the CMA is enduring and successful, I think, for this reason. CMA was set up, as we heard, about 1999-2000 with technical assistance from the Chartered Management Accountants of Canada, now known as the Chartered Professional Accountants, with support from our development agency, CDAC, as it was then, and support from the Government of Canada. CMA has made great strides since then, and it's wonderful that it continues to benefit from a strong link to Canada that was established those 2 decades ago. With the global pandemic, has deeply affected every economy in the world and will almost certainly be a catalyst for profound change in the years ahead. And I think it'll only be some years from now that we'll understand the depth of that change. But I think this is a period much like 100 years ago of great ferment and change. And out of that comes a lot of opportunity. As such, I think the newly elected council members and the membership more generally of CMA have a key role to play in adopting the necessary tools and practices to suit the evolving business and management dynamics. I think the holistic approach of management accounting was already essential in a very complex business environment as it existed pre-pandemic. And this will be magnified with the realignments resulting from the pandemic and its accompanying disruption. With that, accountability on the part of those who assume positions of management in the private sector, the public sector, is essential. And accountability is also about learning, about continuous learning, and that continuous improvement is a necessary prerequisite for success. On the other hand, a lack of transparency and accountability can hinder quality investments, foreign and local, that are essential to a country's progress. And I think CMA has an important role to play in the professionalism that underpins this transparency and accountability, providing internationally recognized credentials that give their members, clients, an important level of confidence when they're doing business in Sri Lanka. I'd also flag that another important factor for future prosperity, whether in Canada or in Sri Lanka, or frankly in any other country, is participation of women at the decision-making level. And this is a priority for Canada at home and in the support we provide abroad. And while there are, highly capable, dedicated, and professional women, highly educated women in Sri Lanka, they've only recently, from what I can see, begun to take top positions in corporations. And I hope that in coming years, with expected labor shortages, encouraging maximum participation of all the human capital available will be necessary, actually, for the continued economic growth. So I think CMA is playing a role in providing credentials to a new generation of Sri Lankan professional women and men, of course. I'd encourage you to encourage women to come to your council as well, to put their name forward for your council. The bedrock of professionalism that CMA provides will help position Sri Lanka for future growth, whether in the opportunities offered by the new port city or the wider economy. And before I finish, I should note that Canada and Sri Lanka are working together to tackle this pandemic, along with the rest of the world. And I'm particularly pleased that Sri Lanka will be among the countries that will benefit from the significant contributions that Canada has made to COVAX, about $440 million to provide vaccines around the world. This complements extensive other support we're providing multilaterally and bilaterally. This is on the understanding that no one is safe until everyone is safe. So together we'll overcome the disease. With that, let me take this opportunity to extend my best wishes to the Council and management of CMA Sri Lanka for their visionary outlook, for being global leaders in the accounting profession, and for organizing this Founders Day oration and induction of the new council. Once again, congratulations to the new council members. I'm confident they will continue to contribute to the success of their organizations and to the future of Sri Lanka. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you too, High Commissioner David. We do appreciate the commitment that you have just expressed with regard to the support of the Government of Canada, with regard to the mitigation of these very difficult situations that we face with the pandemic on the one hand. And also we'd like to say thank you very much for your hearty endorsement of CMA Sri Lanka, and also the underscoring of the role that can be played by CMA in providing the credible basis for foreign investment to flow into this country by abiding with best practices in management at every stage and at every level of both corporate and hopefully government organizations as well. And I don't think the point that you made with regard to the women being included in the scheme of things was not heard. I'm sure it was heard. Thank you very much. And now, as was mentioned, we will proceed with a review. We did mention that we will have an opportunity to travel back in time a little bit and appreciate the range and scope of the journey that has been traveled thus far. So we trust you enjoy this. This is largely a visual presentation, but there is a bit of audio as well. But you can leave your audio off and watch the proceedings.
The Institute of Certified Management Accountants, CMA, of Sri Lanka was set up in 1999 with technical assistance from CMA Canada.
because we are training you in that aspect where you will be able to really prevent corruption in institutions.
Comprising 175 or more members and associate professional accountancy organisations, which includes CMA Sri Lanka.
I'm confident you'll contribute to the success of your organizations and to the future of Sri Lanka.
Professor Lakshman R. Vattivala, who is a celebrated icon in the field of accounting, is the founder president and continues to serve CMA as its president. Professor Vattivala is the past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, a past president of the South Asian Federation of Accountants, and founder president of AAT Sri Lanka, and was the former chairman of the People's Bank and was on the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, BOI. The Institute of Certified Management Accountants. Cost management and cost control would be two areas in which CMA will be closely associated to bring about efficiency, productivity, prevent waste, and in promoting value creation.
Thank you very much, and we trust that you enjoyed that presentation and a trip back in time. Now, a suitable introduction has been made to our next speaker, founder president and incumbent president of CMA Sri Lanka, Professor Lakshman R. Vattivala, who addresses this audience. We shall wait a moment, I think, until Professor Vattivala rejoins the Zoom meeting. He seems to unexpectedly have been interrupted in his connection, but I reckon that will be sorted. we must, perforce, apologize for that interruption. But, you know, those that know the matter better than we do will be active in seeking a solution, and we no doubt have President Professor Watawala reconnected in a very short time, and he will be able to address those that are linked in on this Zoom meeting. Okay, we've just had word from Professor Lakshman Watawala that, not too surprisingly, his equipment back where he is playing up, as the saying has it. So there has to be a very slight adjustment in the scheme of things. And therefore, we shall proceed now with our keynote speaker with the day's oration. And the theme and topic, as was mentioned earlier in passing, in its fullest rendition, it will be skills, knowledge, and attitudes needed for the future of work. That's the title of, or the theme of our speech today. And our speaker is Professor Ho Yu-ki, and he is an advisory council member of CMA Sri Lanka, Associate Provost, Skills Future, Singapore Institute of Technology, and a former professor in accounting with the National University of Singapore. And Professor Ho is linked in with us at this meeting, and so will be speaking remotely. So on the theme of skills, knowledge, and attitudes needed for the future of work, here's Professor Ho Yu-ki.
Thank you very much. Let me set up the screen and right. Just give me a second.
No, not full screen.
Yeah. I don't know where's my cursor. Yeah. Sorry, give me a second. All right. Good afternoon, Professor Watawala, who's still trying to log in. His Her Excellency David McKinnon, High Commissioner of Canada, Council members of CMA Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to be able to deliver this lecture at the Founders Day's Oration. Today's talk is entitled Skills, Knowledge, and Attitudes Needed for the Future Work. I'll be sharing with you my limited experience as the Associate Provost Skills Future and the Cluster Director Design and Specialized Businesses in the Singapore Institute of Technology. My job is to make the adult learners and students to be more equipped to face the world of work in which the skills, knowledge, and attitudes are changing at a phenomenal rate. This is all the more so during this COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. The objectives of today's session are to present the challenges in a post-COVID-19 world in which the new norms for the future of work will be further accelerated, and this will result in a different genre of workers. In addition, I will also examine and present to you not merely the challenges, but the opportunities in this new world order. I'd like to end on a positive note on what companies, communities, and individuals can do to deal with the challenges. In addition, I'd like to provide some encouragements to the individual students and learners who are tuned in today on how they can navigate this future of work. The agenda for today's session will first cover broad strokes of how the future of work will look like. Secondly, I will provide some of the key attributes for a successful career for an individual. Thirdly, I'll present the challenges and the opportunities in the age of digital technology. And I will close with answering the question, how should companies and individuals prepare themselves for this future of work? Let's begin. Let's take a peek at what the future will look like and how this future will impact the future of work or jobs. In the PwC study of the workforce of the future, they conjecture that there are 5 possible mega trends which will shape the future. First, it is the technological breakthroughs resulting in the rapid advances in technological innovations. Technological breakthrough, and we have experienced that in the COVID-19 era, as without Zoom, the world of communication and linking education, work, and conferences would have come to a halt. What else would technological breakthrough bring to the new world? Will it fundamentally change the business travel patterns and thus hospitality, airline, and tourism patterns of individuals permanently? How about the use of fossil fuel? Second, demographic shapes the future as the world population ages and also the shifting of consumption patterns. China has recently introduced a 3 children policy to address the aging population. Third, rapid urbanization, where more and more individuals will be concentrated in capital cities. The need for smart cities and the ability to cope with high density living. And this pandemic has shown us that countries with high density living are most vulnerable to a pandemic of this nature. Fourth, the shift in global economic power. Some has hailed that this is the century and the age of the rise of the Asian power. BBC in December 2020 reported that the Chinese economy will overtake the US by 2028. And it quotes a study based on the UK-based Center for Economics and Business Research, CEBR, which says that China's skillful management of COVID-19 would boost its relative growth compared to US and Europe in coming years. And China will overtake the US as a leading economy in the world, the largest economy in the world by 2028, 5 years earlier than what was predicted. Finally, the scarcity of resources and the effects of climate change will force the world to relook at its current way of operations, as the current state of operations are ultimately not sustainable. So PwC conducted a massive survey covering 10,029 members of general population based in China, Germany, India, the UK, and the US. And these are some of the key findings. Let me start on the left-hand side. On the left-hand side, 23% wants a job that makes a difference. And 25% would like to work for employers with values that match theirs. And see, this becomes the baseline for us to understand the job needs of individual. As we move to the second column, which is a questionable finding in the sense it is a finding that's of significant interest. 73% think technology can never replace human mind, while 56% think it is the government's responsibility to take action to protect jobs from automation. A strange response from the people in the survey. Then comes three very positive trends that was observed. One, 65% think technology will improve the job prospect. 74% are ready to learn new skills or to be completely retrained. And 74% also said that they believe it is their personal responsibility to upgrade their skills. With these three positive comes three interesting negatives. 60% of the respondents think fewer people will have stable, long-term employment in the future. And this is scary. If they don't have long-term employment in the future, what kind of employment will it be for that matter? 37% of the respondents are worried about automation putting jobs at risk. This has up 4 percentage points as compared to the 2014 survey, right? And one of the most interesting findings I thought was in the last box. 70% of the respondents would consider using treatments or drugs to enhance their body or brain to increase the employment prospects. Talk about the brain concentration enhancing drugs for students in the American universities. And this, unfortunately, seems to be coming out from the general respondents in this survey. Given these statistics, what would the people generally feel about the future? And the survey continues to provide us with this thought pattern, namely 73% of these respondents, 10,029 of them, say that they are excited and confident about this changing world and future, while only 18% say that I'm nervous about what the future holds, while another 8% say I really don't care. I tend not to think that far ahead. You see, in the midst of these challenges in the future of work, there is still this spirit of excitement and confidence. The human beings are versatile, agile, and adaptable. They will be able to cope with this future. I like to believe, and I'm encouraged by the fact that this should be the starting point. Now, let me deal directly with the future of work. How does this future of work actually look like? The Future of Work report by the World Economic Forum in 2020 says that 50% of all employees will need reskilling by 2025. Another 40% of current workers' core skills are expected to change in the next 5 years. And here are some of the big questions that we will have to address in the midst of this finding. How are we to create a workforce which is able to fulfill the needs of the future of work? What are the key competencies needed for future jobs? What are these future jobs? How can I prepare for these future jobs? I'd like to believe these are the urgent questions that we need to deal with in this future of work. This slide shows us the share of tasks performed by machines versus human in 2020 and then again in 2025 as conjectured. It suggests, for example, for information and data processing in the first row, in 2020, the share between machine and human beings is 57% machine, 43% for human. By 2025, we expect the machine share of tasks to increase to 66%, while the human share of tasks for information and data processing will be reduced to 34%. And this observation about the increasing use of machines in various tasks can be observed over a large number of tasks. The key takeaway from this slide is that the machines will increasingly do the tasks which humans once do. And even in some of the more complex and complicated tasks like reasoning and decision-making, coordinating, developing, managing, and even advising for that matter. The World Economic Forum Jobs Report 2020 said that by 2025, 85 million jobs will be displaced, and these are generally routine, repetitive, structured, and predictable jobs, which machines or algorithms can do much better than human beings. Machines and algorithms do not need tea or coffee break, nor lunch break too. And they are not even subjected to human mood swing for that matter. The good news is that 97 million new jobs, which require new skills, will be created. You see, the mathematics here is that there will be a plus 12 million new jobs. I see. So it's not a gloom and doom situation. That means there is a massive pivoting in which there will be a obsolescence in terms of certain jobs and the creation of new jobs. The big question is, will you catch the opportunities or will you be left behind for that matter? Another question will you be in the blue box or will you be in the red zone or the red box? And how do we ensure that we will be in the red hot zone? So let's start. In the report on the taxonomy of skills at work, the attributes of a successful worker is significantly positively correlated with his competency. And competency in this definition is defined as a collection of skills, knowledge, attitudes, and abilities that enable that particular individual to perform his job roles and perform his job role well. The first two components are skills and knowledge. Skill is defined as the capabilities needed to complete a task and therefore the whole job. While knowledge is the body of facts, principles, and theories in a particular field of work to allow the individual to know the reason or raison d'etre for an individual in doing a certain procedure, task, or work. You see, skills and future alone are not sufficient, as one must have appropriate attitudes. Attitudes in this instance is defined as the learned behaviors, the emotional intelligence, traits, and beliefs, the EQ, emotional quotient, ability to define oneself, to present oneself so as to influence others to get the job done. You need three things: the skills, the knowledge, and the attitudes. Interestingly, the third and the final and the last component is that of abilities. Competency has to be calibrated based on one's given abilities. We cannot control abilities as they are given or they are born, some individuals are born with, but we can help one to discover his abilities and then to equip him, given his abilities, to be a skillful, knowledgeable, and hardworking employee with good attitudes. This is the recipe for a successful career. Skills, knowledge, attitudes contained within the abilities of an individual. Let me take a quick example to show you what are the skills and knowledge. You see, a competent staff at the skill and knowledge level may cover areas like businesses, innovation and creativity, digital and technology, language. He must know the skills of all these in order to perform his area. And within these essential skills and knowledge, it will be difficult. Without these essential skills and knowledge, it will be difficult for someone to be successful. We can further break down these skills and knowledge into finer elements and components. For example, within innovation and creativity, skills would include problem-solving skills, while language will include communication, negotiation, persuasion, amongst others. You see, this taxonomy is important because it helps us to better understand what are the components. How do we define certain things so that we can move towards it and we can talk with a same vocabulary? Take the example of attitudes. Attitudes are the learned behaviors of an individual. And this may include working with others, self-management, being a global citizenship and civic responsibility. Likewise, these can be broken further down into finer elements like service orientation, leadership and social influence, initiative, self-awareness. It could also include resilience, stress tolerance, and self-care, flexibility, amongst others as it is. Finally, we come to the abilities, and the abilities in the context of a human being, the major classifications are the physical, which includes the psychomotor, the cognitive, and the sensory abilities. We are generally born with these activities. We need to know how good we are in them and how we can hone our abilities for the particular job which will define us in terms of our career. One of the interesting things is, how are we to be human? Let me bring to you a very interesting study, all right? A very interesting study basically done by David Deming. See, David Deming basically did a very interesting study, all right, that looks at the employment data of the US from 1980 to 2012. He plotted the share of jobs which require two major attributes, the social skills and the mathematical skills, where the social skills are called the soft or human skills, where the mathematical skills represent the hard technical skills of an individual. And he made two interesting observations. First, across both low and high mathematical skills in the horizontal, those with higher social skills on the upper half of this particular picture are those where the share of jobs grow. The green color are those where the jobs grow. The gray are those that are about the same, where the orange ones are those that has fallen over time. And he observes all those jobs that require social skills, right, actually are growing, but not so basically for those with lesser and lower social skills. The second observation he made was those with higher social and mathematical skills, the top right-hand quadrant as it is, their jobs generally increase more than others. You see, this suggests the relative importance of social skills. In addition, it suggests that jobs that require a mono skill, whether it's just mono social or mono mathematics, they will not do as well as those jobs that require both of them in the top right-hand quadrant. This is crucial for the future of works, where we must not only home in on our hard or technical or digital skills, we must overlay these hard skills with the human skills. Just a simple observation. Let's look at the council members whom you have inducted this afternoon. They are not only technical experts with the hard skills in their fields. What makes them stand out in their is their social skills, their ability to communicate, their ability to influence, their ability to negotiate, their ability to cut deals as it is. Being human is a significant advantage. And we need to remember we are human, and we need to remember we need to make use of that advantage. And this ushers in what we so-call the multi-skill T-model worker. A T-model worker is one who has an attractive diversity of capabilities, the horizontal bar. Yet he also has a deep understanding of one discipline, industry, or system, with the ability to work across more complex issues or subject areas. This is the horizontal bars that makes him, this is the vertical bar that makes him as a deep specialist. See, the horizontal bar signifies a generalist, while the vertical bar makes him a specialist. Therefore, a most effective and successful worker is one who is T-shaped. And he's both a generalist having diverse capabilities that traverse different spheres as it is. And he's steeped in a specific domain knowledge and skills. You may ask, what then are these key soft and hard skills in which a particular person needs to have? LinkedIn, one of the greatest social connector for working individuals, and one of the place where you do a lot of job match, has looked at this database and mined the information and proposed the following key soft and hard skills for 2020. The top 5 soft skills in 2020 is creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, emotional intelligence. And the top 10 hard skills, and the first 5 include blockchain, cloud computing, analytical reasoning, artificial intelligence, UX design. And lo and behold, the good news is that in the top 10 hard skills, it also includes business analysis and sales, and not merely just digital skills alone. So I have framed for you what the future looks like and the kind of attributes needed for a successful career. Now I will zero in on the disruption arising from the digital world. Digital technology, a new frontier in the future of works. LinkedIn did a survey and asked APAC, Asia Pacific countries, CEOs, about their views on digital disruption. 76% of the respondents opine that technology will significantly or completely change the competition landscape in their business. Take, for example, in this pandemic, if you do not have apps or an online platform, and if you are in the food and beverage business during the lockdown, you can be decimated. And for those auditing firms which cannot do auditing via a digital platform, inevitably their audit jobs will have to be postponed, and which means the revenue cycle will be disrupted. What are the key technologies which will be of greater importance in 2025? The Future of Jobs Survey 2020 World Economic Forums position for us some of those major changes or demands in terms of the technologies. Cloud computing, encryption and cybersecurity, distributed ledger technology, robots and humanoids, all these have double-digit increases in terms of likelihood to be deployed as a technology in 2025 as compared to the survey that was conducted in 2018. Going forward, there is a more detailed study on the deployment of technologies in 2025 by various sectors. And let us just concentrate on the financial services sector, the one that's highlighted in purple for you. The high percentage of adoption are in AI, big data analytics, cloud computing, e-commerce, digital trade, Internet of Things, text, image, and voice processing. These are no surprises, as the financial services are most affected by digitalization. We, the accounting and finance professionals, must sit up and take heed lest it becomes too late or we become obsolete. These slides provides more information about those jobs that will be displaced versus those jobs that will be increasing in demand. The key attributes of the declining jobs are routine, repetitive, structured, and predictable, and they will include, for example, data entry clerks, bookkeepers, assembly, and factory workers. And surprisingly, in number 4, it also includes accountants and auditors. The key attributes of jobs which are increasing in 2025 are human decision-making, judgment, unstructured technology intense. These include data analysts and scientists, information security analysts, Internet of Things. And fortunately, if you go down to the next 10, as it is from 11 to 20, those jobs that are of increasing in nature would also include jobs that requires humans intervention, more than just technology or data-driven. It includes humanness like project managers, strategic advisors, risk management specialists, or jobs that require human judgment in the midst of seemingly chaos and unstructured inputs or information. No humanity is lost. In fact, humanity is a plus and advantage, but only certain aspects of humanity that we need to home in. Firms are also asked what seems to be the key barriers to the adoption of technology. And the key response is the skill gaps in the local labor market. This is the golden opportunity for individuals to invest in those skills which will help to fill the gap. No wonder in Singapore, some of the top courses of retraining for retraining purposes are data analytics, cyber security, big data, artificial intelligence, and skills which pertain to technology. Would Sri Lanka have the same needs and patterns? My personal guess is that it will be the same, because no country will be spared of this digital evolution as it is. As mentioned in this session, the human skills are likewise highly demanded. The human skills include critical thinking and analysis, problem solving, self-management, working with people, management, and communication of activities. Not all highly demanded skills are those of digital and technology skills. The social skills, as shown by David Deming in his studies, are equally important for the success of individuals. A constant question I've been asked, right, as a professor of accounting, is how deep should the digital skills be for the accountant, particularly in the context of an accounting and finance professionals, whether is it in undergoing studies in the university or working out there. This is a difficult question. Would the knowledge and skills of data visualization be sufficient? Or should accounting and finance professionals know how to do data programming? I have to confess that my faculty and I in the Singapore Institute of Technology cannot fully agree on the approach. I favor a deep approach to go down to programming. My faculty felt that data visualization is good enough. So let me give you an example, and you can make up your mind, all right, concerning how far we want digital skills to be taught to accountants and finance professionals. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the standard binomial pricing tree, right? In this pricing tree, there are two states in each day, up or down. This is a random walk, meaning whatever happens today has no correlation tomorrow as it is. They are fully random walk. And this random walk has a positive drift. When it's up, it is 5%. When it's down, it is -3. So it is a random walk with a positive drift. After 4 days, there are 2 to the power of 4 or 16 states that are possible. And the expected value can be computed. Namely, if I start with $100,000, given this, at the end of the 4 days, the expected value of my instrument will be $104,060. Let me give you another standard binomial pricing tree. This is a similar binomial pricing tree, but instead of being a random walk, it has what we so-called a correlated walk. This means whatever happened yesterday will have a probability impact on the movement today. Namely, if yesterday is plus, today there will be highest chances of having it positive. If yesterday is negative, today will have a higher chances of being negative. This means that whatever happened yesterday will have an effect today, and we can look at the pattern. And after 4 days, it has 16 states, and its expected value is $104,172 if the starting value is $100,000. If this instrument is enlarged to 10 days, the number of states will be 2 to the power of 10, meaning 1,064 states, and your entire spreadsheet will explode as it is. And this spreadsheet approach in this binomial pricing will no longer be possible. Remember, spreadsheet was the digital tool introduced in the accounting and finance world maybe about 30 years ago, and is still one of the most popular tools today. But this example shows its significant limitations in today's world of financial instruments. Now allow me to show you a Python programming solution. This Python program has only 35 lines, and it runs 5 million simulations for 4 days in these particular instruments. And it takes a total of 12.6 seconds on my very slow laptop to generate the expected results. And the expected result is $104,171, which is a mere almost 0.01% difference from the answers that we have earlier. More elegantly, this particular program is not limited to 4 days because I can change the parameters highlighted in red in the number of days from 4 to 10, which is 1064 states, to 102. 2 to the power of 100 is a 32-digit number as it is. Theoretically, it has no limitation on the number of days except for the speed of running the program and getting the results. Question: if you are an employer, who would you hire? One who only knows Excel or one who knows both tools? I hope you understand from this illustration what I am trying to communicate. Another school of thought is that we do not need programming. We just teach the students data analytics, which include the simple collection and storage of data to the complex, namely predictive analysis, which will include machine learning, AI, to enable us to do forecasting and preemption. You see, the whole of the digital skills is a continuum, and each individual and company and professional bodies has to decide what is enough for this particular profession as it is. The end goal is always to have a data-driven, evidence-based decision-making that will always beat anyone else that does not have that skill. At the Singapore Institute of Technology, we try to teach our students access to technology and software. This means that in the classroom context, we cover the use of Bloomberg Terminal, SAP, Xero, Caseware for auditing purposes, amongst others, so that the students are familiar with these tools before they come out to work. They don't have to be a master of these tools. They just need to know how they work and it exists, and they can home and learn these skills by themselves. And our ultimate goal is we hope to increase their digital skill sets to make them more employable. Similarly, we expose our students to data analytics. And in data analytics, what do we introduce? We introduce R programming, teaching them how to use Power BI, Tableau, statistical software like eView, and simulation software like CAPSIM. And this is to simulate a real world in the classroom, such that when they're exposed to data analytics, they will not be terrified when they come out to work. You see, the search for better solutions and equipping for learning is a never-ending pursuit. And this brings me to my final segment today concerning a call to action. I would think this to be the most important part. We ask ourselves, after hearing everything, so what? Let me start off with the employers and organizations. And LinkedIn say it well on their report. Organizations need to be first aware of the skills gap that they have and they are facing, what functions and departments they are in, and how this could alter their future goals. They also need to build a vision around the kind of talent that they need to fill this gap. What do you want ultimately? One wisdom literature says, without vision and dreams, the people perish. What are the dreams and visions of a future of jobs for your company and for your organization? So let me quickly give you a few structures as it is. This is a high employee experience model proposed by Willis Towers Watson, a global HR firm. Employees excel when there are connections and contributions. In terms of connections, employees want to have a sense of purpose. Why does my job matter beyond bringing bread and butter on the table? The employees excel when they can connect with the great leaders who lead by examples in the enterprise that they work in. For contributions, the employees want to work for a thriving, a meaningful and impactful organization. They want to ensure that their work matters in changing the world. Finally, they also want to see growth and reward as the return for their hard work. This is a very simple and yet powerful model to promote high performance team. And this is where it has significant impact in retooling the workers for the future. PwC in their study in 2018, right, on the workforce of the future gave the following message to the leaders. Right? Act now and do not leave to regret one's inaction in years to come. Companies need to put stakes on bets as the future is unknown, but not investing in the future is not an option. Companies must take risks and calculated bet on a possible winning horse. You see, there needs to be bigger leap rather than mere incremental changes. The original Moore's law refers to Moore's perception that the number of transistors on a microchip doubles every 2 years, but the cost of computer is half. Moore's law states that we can expect the speed and capability of our computers to increase every couple of years, and we will pay less for them. In the digital world, if we move at an incremental pace, the digital revolution will overtake us and leave us behind. Own the automation debate and chart the path we want to go as an organization. Concentrate on the people and not merely on the jobs. Invest in them, reskill them, retool them for that matter, send them for courses for retraining. And finally, build a clear narrative, because your narrative will attract the young people, because the young people and the workers are persuaded by a clear mission, a clear vision, and a well-articulated narrative. Now I move on to the call of actions to the individuals. These are the 10 human skills. How do you acquire these human skills? More importantly, what are you lacking and how are you going to acquire them? Do you know what you need or what are you lack of? You see, the starting point in the call to action for an individual is that you need to know what you have or don't have. You need to have what we so-called a personal skill inventory stock take. Moving forward, right? These are the possible hard skills, especially in the digital space. These are the data and the AI jobs of tomorrow. You may not need to be a master of them, as it takes time and investment to do well in any one of them. However, you need to know something about them in order to know something about the digital world. Coursera, the world's largest online course platform, provides a listing of the mastery level needed for each of the 10 most highly sought after courses or skills to impart the skills, or most of the sought after courses to impart the relevant skills. Clearly, those with a mastery score of 3 are those areas in which there are significant shortage of individuals with those mastery of skills. 6 is the mastery of skills, and 80% of that has 3 and below for that matter. The good news is that with appropriate education, learning, and investment, these skills can be acquired in days or months of training if one applies himself to the pursuit of it. Take an example. The 35 line of Python code, I learned how to program Python by watching a Coursera course on Python programming, as it is. And it is free, right? And I spend myself time learning how to do the Python programming all on downloaded free software and a free courseware for that matter. For example, if you look at this chart, for machine learning, it has a space in which they would like to employ many more people who are skilled. And on average, it will take about 86 days to master. And if you use 20 working days per month, there is approximately about 4 over months. Of course, this is on average. Some will take more, some will take shorter. The point is that we need to know what are these skills, where to find them, and make a commitment to acquire them through the internet. These are all possibilities in today's world. My final slide for the individual call to action consists of the following. 1, be prepared to learn a new skill. It is within your capability. 2, be responsible for your personal upskilling. You can count on the government or your employer, but ultimately you have to decide this is what you want to do. A Chinese proverb says, you can bring the horse to the water, but you cannot force it to drink the water. Obtain good coaching, guidance, and advice. Talk to a more experienced person and seek advice and help. In fact, I may go as far as saying you should look and find a mentor. I am a fellow of CPA Australia. CPA Australia has just embarked on a mentoring scheme where we pair senior CPA members with new members who want a mentor. I was recently paired with a new CPA member who is 20 years younger than me. He just started out as a CPA. And in our first meeting, he expressed his desire to want to learn from an older member like myself. And he wants a mentor. He wants career guidance. He wants advice. He wants to see where does his career will be taking him and what does he need to do to bring him from here to there as it is. And to me, it is my privilege to be able to mentor a younger CPA member. My final call to action is know thyself. Self-awareness is the first step to fulfillment. If you do not know who you are, what are your strengths, your abilities, your skill, and your knowledge, it is very hard to then know what you want in life. Take stock of your attitudes, take stock of your skills and of your talents, and ultimately chart your development path. Your world and my world are very different. When I was a young man, no one taught me all this, but I was fortunate to have good mentors who guide me and help me. Today, it is a much more competitive world to be successful, but you have a better starting point. You have been brought to understand that there's so much you can do with the internet. There's so much self-learning that you can develop yourself. Allow me to close. This has been a long lecture, all right? Allow me to conclude. I want to finish this session with the question, where do you want to go from tomorrow onwards? I hope that you will do something about what you have heard today. And the last question for this session will be, where would you end up in the future? I hope it will be my privilege one day when I bump into some of you and you will tell me, hey, I became very inspired and did something with my career after hearing your talk. This is where I am today. If this is the case, you would have made my day and you would have made my time worthwhile preparing this lecture. With this, I thank you for your time and I wish you the very best in the future of work. Thank you very much. Thank you.
There are a few questions, Professor Ho, on Q&A.
Yeah. Okay, go on.
Of course, one says it's an excellent presentation. Then the other one is cost accountants are having better prospect with skills of technology.
Oh yeah,
so
that's absolutely true. You see, accountants are put in the best position, particularly in the finance service industry, right, to be able to exploit technology and bring them into a place where no other professions could easily enter into, because they're highly trained, right? They're highly trained.
Yeah. The next one is, of course, they are saying excellent presentation. Thank you, Professor Ho. Could you please also let us know what changes would be required in the course structure of management accounting institutes like CMA Sri Lanka to make aspiring CMAs future ready? Yeah. This question, I think, is raised by Parvati Venkatesh. I think she is a member from India.
So I'm very privileged and honored that I have the opportunity to be involved in looking at the curriculum of CMA Sri Lanka. Professor Watawala and the council has been very kind to ask for some of my opinions, right? And some of my opinions has been in the sense that if you look at the curriculum, there is a part of internship. You see, I mean, you can't go through a CMA course by looking just at the theoretical knowledge, right? By having the internship, by having the field practical experience, that absolutely helps. And if you look at the curriculum too, that we are also systematically putting in the digital technology into the curriculum, right? We will have to do this step by step as we step up the digital training and skills and knowledge of the participants is having, right? You see, in the good old days, a professional curriculum takes 5-10 years to revise. They look at it once every 5-10 years as it is. Unfortunately, that luxury is no longer with us as it is, right? What we need to do is we need to constantly look at it and ask ourselves the question, is the curriculum still fit for purpose? Ask the practitioners, Ask the educators. What are they doing in the universities? How else can the curriculum be made fit for purposes in the professional world, for that matter? Right.
There's another one, especially on attitudes. Now, this I think is a major problem for our students, and also it may have some maybe reasons, like maybe people who maybe study in Colombo, maybe people who study in the rural areas.
Yep.
How do you see this, and how one can maybe help them to get over any of the attitudinal problems?
Yeah. You see, I just cut a lecture for the Ministry of Education in Singapore recently, just last week as it is. And in the lecture, they asked me to talk about diverse learners. You see, in the lecture, I shared with the group of the people in the conference about my own background. You see, I came from a very poor background. See, my father and mother has 5 sons. I'm number 4 as it is. My parents were illiterate. We were really, really poor when we were young. You see, I think the background is only a certain dimension. But what is most important is that the attitude allows us to determine our destinies. Yeah, I mean, right. And so one of my campaign and point that I constantly like to do is to remind the young people, all right, whatever station of life you're placed in, you actually can change the world. You can change your surrounding as it is by adopting a positive attitude. Poverty, poorness, lack of resources, these are part and parcel of life. But it's how do you use your humanness, particularly in the humanness of agility, the humanness of resilience, to rise above that. And the first thought pattern is that you have to address this attitude. Do you want to grow? Do you want to learn? Do you want to make a world of differences? I mean, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's another question. I think it's from Mr. Venkataramani from India. Just I think it is. Technology changes are happening very fast.
Yeah.
But visualization is becoming more complex. For example, whether battery operated cars or hydrogen fuel cars will win in the future.
Yeah.
It is highly complex to understand the future technologies and difficult to predict the winners.
Yeah.
How to plan for the future with such complexities?
I think you have to spend time. You see, one of the greatest challenge we are facing right now, particularly in the working world among executives, is that we just don't have time to sit down and think, right? I think you need to set aside time to think for corporations and for individuals, right? It takes systematic steps. So it's the same problem we have in Singapore. We are systematically trying to retrain our motor mechanics because one day they will not be servicing just physical bolt and nuts car. They will be servicing what's called electric cars. Is that I mean, right? They will need to understand semiconductors. They will need to understand circuits. They will need to understand how do they repair parts, or replace parts for that matter. So I think the thought pattern is to know how the world is going to change. Where is it going to rise in? Where are the needs? And then systematically push ourselves towards that. We can't go to Mars in the first instance, but we can go to the moon first. We may not be able to tackle a total driverless car as it is, but we can start with a semi electric car, and so on and so forth. We just have to take baby steps to move towards it. Right.
Thank you, Professor. I think Lakshmi Pera is also here. He has said great advice, Professor Ho. Then Risley, thank you for the excellent presentation. One question that caused inability to achieve success is not evaluating decisions.
All right, okay. I think that is an excellent question, right? So in many countries and even in many companies, we suffer from this. We let things happen, right? We don't evaluate the outcomes. And in evaluating the outcomes, we don't evaluate the outcomes and we don't hold people responsible to the outcomes as it is. So that's the reason why I would like to suggest that in Singapore, we are very strict. The term that we keep using is KPIs, key performance indicators. we are constantly assessed and evaluated. Have we delivered what we promised to deliver? Is that what I mean? Right. And so the accountability loop has to be closed. Otherwise, people will be end up wasting resources. Otherwise, people will be able to get away with promises or empty promises for that matter. So I really like your questions, right? There must be formal, proper assessment, accountability, and thereafter for us to have good governance, to ensure things happen. Yeah.
There's another question I think Lakshmi Pereira has sent. How do you see the skills of the future match with careers of the future?
Yeah. Well, the skills of the futures and the careers of the future, right? I think I have to confess, I have two sons. One is 24, one is 27. I have to confess as a father, I don't quite understand them to a certain extent. My older son, 27, works in Wall Street as a trader. My number 2 is in third year university. He's doing his intern as a software engineer as it is. So I'm trying to understand the young people of today. You see, the young people of today wants what you so-called purpose, meaning, right? They are very different from our generation where we work hard and we work very, very hard. Right? The young people today wants work-life balance, right? They want to see a career that's sustainable, a career that allows them to so-called, in a sense, enjoy the goodness of life, right? To allow them to pace themselves out over their long career. So I think this is where the skill part and the career part has to coincide, where the people has to continuously learn and become what we so-called almost like a lifelong learner, right? As your career develops, you need to ask yourself, what new skills do you need to have, right? And to continuously do that training as it is. Yeah.
There is another question from Rifkan. How far Singapore has gone in embracing digital technology in the banking sector, in particularly AI, big data, etc.
All right. The Singapore government has issued a 3 online banking license. All right. So the first few online digital banking will be starting soon as it is. Interestingly, you see, we also must not be romantic in the sense that once you roll into the digital space, one of the nightmares that we are working very hard to overcome is actually cybersecurity, right? So once you go into online and as you go into artificial intelligence, or you go into what's the Internet of Things, the major nightmare you have is that you need to lock down the system, right? An open system and locking it down, it sounds like a contradiction. And so these are the things that the Singapore government works carefully and slowly because we are a small nation. If anyone, for example, like what recently happened to the beef factory in America, where someone hacked into your system, shut down your entire production process, you are in trouble, right? So just imagine if we link our banking system all together and everything goes on the online mode as it is, you better be sure that no one can hack into your system and literally shut down your entire monetary system and hold you ransom. Right? So these are some of the issues that we're looking at. We are moving very fast ahead in terms of AI, in terms of online digitalization, because we know that this is the future. But yet we're treading it with great fear, with great carefulness. Yeah.
The next one, Dr. Ravi Bamunsingha, fascinating data-driven presentation, Professor. Thank you. How has the governments aligned to these changes, innovation and development?
What was the last question again? Can you repeat again? Last question.
Innovation, that is mainly how the governments align to these changes of innovation and development.
All right. So Singapore is a very strange country, right? Yeah, it's a strange country in the sense that Singapore is a country in which the government is the leader, right? So it has a different set of dynamics. In America, generally it's a free enterprise. It's the companies that lead innovations. But generally in Singapore, interestingly, it's the government that actually propagate innovations. Right? So in that sense, the alignment is generally not an issue, but it is the speed of propagation that becomes an issue. All right? Because once it's top down, the issue is that the people at the bottom has to catch the vision, and accelerate it. Unlike America, because it's bottom up, so the speed is a lot faster, you see, right, than what we have in Singapore. Yeah.
Okay, there is another question from V. Iyer. I think it's from India. When 90% of the work is digitized and handled by robots, AI, how to tackle long disruptions like denial of service, attack, DOS bugs, glitches, and power outrages?
Excellent question. And these are some of our nightmares. I mean, some of our nightmares in the sense, the more you concentrate into hubs, once the hub is compromised, the greater will be the damage to the whole system as it is, right? You see, we are in a catch-22 situation. If we don't digitize and bring them to a hub, we won't bring out the best efficiency of digitalization. But when we do so, we become most vulnerable. So the issue here is that it has to be a balance, I mean, right? It has to be what we so-called building the defense systems and cybersecurity as we move along in terms of digitization, right? You see. So I think the recent example on the shutting down of the manufacturing plant, butcher plant in America is a great example, right? Who would think basically that people will hack into the meat industries and shut down the meat industry? Right? But the meat industry to a certain extent is critical, right? So like, for example, Singapore has an entire island that deals with petrochemical, right? We pose soldiers to guard the entire installation physically, but the entire installation is also run digitally, right? So we will need to pose the equivalence of what is so-called digital security to ensure that no one enters into that facilities and destroy it, right? So these are real issues. These are real issues. Yeah.
So we'll take the last question that is submitted by Dr. PVS Jagan Mohan Rao, past president of SAFA. Reputation and role of CFO, within brackets one individual, plays a very important role in the market capitalization of corporates.
Yeah.
What way technology helps in this perspective?
Yeah, right. So, this is one of the issues that we need to tackle. I mean, right? I think CFOs today understand. You see, if we ask ourselves a question, what is the average age of our CFO today? Depending on the country that you come from, right? Depending on corporation you come from. If the CFOs are in their 50s, some of them in the 60s, in their 40s, you will immediately realize that in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, there are differing skill sets in terms of digital skill sets become very different. You see what I mean? Right? Of course, to be fair too, there are some elderly individuals in the 40s, 50s, and 60s as it is, who are digitally very savvy. Right? So in other words, the CFO themselves also have to deal with this issue. You see, in Singapore, one of our concern has always been, would the older people who are currently industry captains and leaders adverse to technology? Because if they are adverse to technology, you can't move the organization, you see, because they themselves are afraid of technology. They themselves may pay lip services to the technology. So the long and short answer is that yes, in today's CFO, it's imperative that they need to have technology and understand technology. But they don't need to know the nitty-gritty. They need to know how to deploy those technology. They need to know how to employ people who can deploy and roll out those technologies. Right? For them, at their 50 years old, to start learning all over again, all right, at the seniority, is going to be very challenging. Very challenging.
Thank you very much. I'm going to interrupt here in a sense. But first of all, say a very big thank you to Professor Ho for a very wide-ranging discussion there. Obviously, this material needs to be reviewed, and the opportunities will be afforded all of the participants to perhaps see some of this material at a later stage. But at this juncture, I'm going to be inviting that opportunity which we missed will now be reinstated into the schedule and have President Watawala address the audience.
Thank you, Arun. I think our Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya, who did our induction, I think he had to go for another meeting. Then His Excellency David Mackinnon, the High Commissioner for Canada in Sri Lanka. Professor Ho Yu Ki, our keynote speaker and one who did the Founders Day oration. I think it's excellent one. Maybe everyone from the questions we know. Vice President and also Vice President of SAFA, Mr. Hennayaka Bandara. The President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, Mr. Manil Jayasinghe. Our council members, members of CMA, invitees, both locally and overseas. Let me thank everyone for coming to this very important event that we organized. There were two very, very significant events. One, of course, is the induction of our council members taking oath of office and, of course, as per their pledge, that they pledge to give of their best. And one thing in professionals is the commitment that they have, the integrity that they have, the faithfulness that they have, and of course, doing their best to serve the students, members, the government, the private sector, and of course, the most important, society. And of course, it was mentioned by the Canadian High Commissioner about the accountability. This is a basic concept of professional accountants, and today we have to look at two important areas. One, of course, is the accountability. The other one that he mentioned of transparency, and connected with this, of course, the corruption with IFAC is also behind it, and they are supporting the member bodies. So with that, I think we've been able to do this induction. And then, of course, about the history, you'd have seen everything from the beginning to the end, but not the complete thing. I only want to maybe just appreciate the good work of some of those who were there at the beginning, and the services paid by the Canadian government. Because one thing that I want to mention here is that today everyone is wanting the government to do everything. But I think the government must tell professional bodies like us, we are incorporated by an act of parliament, that you take over the professional functions, the educational functions, make them skilled and put them to fit the society that is there and the environment, the business environment. So I just want to maybe speak a few words of those who have held. That was, of course, CMA Canada, who helped us at the moment, and now they are CPA Canada. And then the person who was really instrumental, because this is not a thing that fell from the sky. I have been working with the chartered accountants, the president of the Chartered Institute, then of course setting up of the AAT and this. So it's a long journey where we have been able to connect with many of the professionals overseas, and this was the reason. And we found that Sri Lanka did not have a management accounting body. This I realized at the time that we signed the agreement for the formation of SAFA. We had at that time India, we had in Pakistan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, where only Sri Lanka had the chartered accounting body. So these were the things in my mind. That was in '84, but then we have to work on it because things cannot happen, because we also had at that time a very, very long-standing body that had been servicing our needs. And of course, we had to see how a Sri Lankan management accounting body could be formed. So when you come to this sort of thing, it's not easy, because although people say they love their country, they like to serve the country, but when you want them to come and support and put the signature, it is not very easy. So anyway, I must thank our founders who were there, who came and rallied round, and of course the people who really helped us. Mr. Anand Vehal, he served as the secretary, and for many years he was helping the institute where he came and helped us and worked with us. Then Mr. Bashir Ismail, now the partner in charge of Deloitte, who really played a very, very silent role getting in the financial and the management. Then of course, Mr. Espan Satarasinghe, he has two caps on to his. He was a founder member of the Chartered Institute and also founder member of one. Then Mr. Fred Puimana Singh, a leading practitioner, Then Mr. Someswaran, who was a leading practitioner again, who set up the own firm, Mr. Tyagarajan, and of course, the High Commissioner was talking about a lady. We invited Ms. Lilima Kajichetti because even at that time, they said that we should have a lady. So those were the people, but I must also mention the name of Mr. T.P. Gunawardena, who was there initially, but of course, after his passing away, his place was filled by Ms. Nilima Kajichetti. So these were people who really helped in the formation of the body, and that was really a very, very good thing. Then of course the ministers, now without their support, I would have never been able to get the Canadian aid coming in. The Honorable Kingsley Vikramaratne, who was then the Minister of Trade, he said, don't worry, I will give you a letter. You go and take this to the Canadian High Commission, and he recommended us. And that was the way we got the money. We didn't go and ask the government because government cannot give it. But then we found the way how this could be obtained. And then of course, Honorable G.L. Pires, who has been a founder member, a founder patron from the beginning and helped us. And of course, the Canadian Commissioner who was there. So these are great people who have been helping us. But on the advisory council, I must say, we had a very, very a good leader who was the chairman of that, Dr. G.C.B. Vijayasinghe, who was a senior partner of KPMG. His support was really something overwhelming and helped to set up this body. And I must, although he is no longer there, we must recognize him for the good work that he had done and for the profession in Sri Lanka. Then of course we had Mr. James Mather, senior partner of Ernst & Young, Professor John O. Miller, a past president of CAPA and CPA Australia, late Professor Adolph Enthoven from USA, and Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya, chairman of Singers, Mr. Kenneth Biggs, former board member of IFAC from Canada, then Mr. M.V. Mushin, vice president CIO of the World Bank, late Professor Dr. Kawaja Amjad Said from another leader in the management accounting profession from Pakistan, and also was a past president of SAFA, Mr. A.N. Raman, another leading luminary in the management accounting field, and he was also there. And of course, Professor David Hunt from the UK, the late Professor David Hunt, he was there. So these are some of the people who has helped us. But I must also remember Honorable Bandula Gunawardena, because he is the one who tabled our bill in the parliament, and that was approved after half a day's deliberations. It was approved. So I think there were many others, the ministers and secretaries, who helped us in this great deal, and I am sure that it has gone well. But I must also especially remember Honorable Div Gunasekara, who was the chairman of the COP and the Minister of Human Resources. Unfortunately, they have done away with that, but I think they should have a Minister of Human Resources. He submitted a cabinet paper for the recognition of CMA and also for it to be recognized for government jobs. That was in 2014. His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa was the president at that time. Unfortunately, with the change, things were very, very slow. And then ultimately now it has been gazetted that we are able to take qualification is recognized. So these are really problems that are there in the system itself. Although we can take a decision, as was said earlier, the monitoring, the evaluation, all those things have to be done. So these are some of the main things that happen. But today we are really, then of course we bought our own building. I must thank the government because they also gave us a grant for this. And that also was through this paper that was submitted to the cabinet. Then we were recognized as company secretaries of tax agents. So all these things are there, but government side working is very, very delayed, although cabinet can take very, very fast decisions. So this is another thing that we need to take up. Then of course we obtained the membership for the International Federation of Accountants, the Confederation of Asian Accountants, SAFA. SAFA was the first body that gave us the membership, and I must thank the President of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, Mr. Kunal Banerjee, who played a very, very leading role supporting it. And for the IFAC, Mr. Sujiva Rajapaksa was the representative of Chartered Institute on our council, and he supported us, and we were able to get the IFAC membership. Today we have Mr. Mani Jayasinghe, who is there, and he is also serving on the council, which is helping us. So I think there are a lot of things that we can think of. And of course, today we are affected by the COVID, but I must say that we've been able to digitalize ourselves. Today what we can see is something I think very relevant to what Professor Ho was speaking. because we need to change ourselves. We need to go into new areas. I must also thank Professor Ho and the other advisors that we have. In fact, Professor Paul Mehta and some of the others helped us to revise our syllabus, which was interim revision. As he said, we need to do changes, but not wait for 5 years. So now we have done these changes, which will bring the digitalization into the syllabus, plus also the practical aspects of it. So these are very, very important things. And we have a very, very good advisory council. Professor Ho is there, and also Professor Mehta from University, Professor in Accounting of La Trobe University, Australia. Then we are also having the Integrated Reporting Council. I think Associate Professor Latmika Perra is here. Professor Samanthi Senaratne is there. So many who are helping in this great deal. And of course, from South Africa, Graham is there, and he's been helping us in the integrated reporting. So a lot of people have been helping us, but today we need to play a leading role. And that's, of course, one of the areas is the Cost and Management Accounting Standards Board. I must thank the Institute of Cost Accountants for joining with us and helping us in this respect. Mr. Mahendra Jayasekara, leading industrialist, he is the chairman of this, and we need to take this forward so that it will help us. And of course, on the integrated reporting, Professor Ho is the chairman of this committee, and where value creation is the most important thing. We are now trying to see how this concept can be taken to the government departments and ministries, so that we will see that for all the money that we give them in the budget speech, that they will create value. So I think this is a very, very important aspect that we can see. So today's speech was really meant to show and also to tell the importance of skill development. Because today everyone is talking of economic development. Maybe they are talking of financial hubs. But if we do not have the right people to work in these places, I think we are not going to gain anything. So first of all, our skill development, the education, the professionals, this has to be done. And that's why we as a professional body have invited Professor Ho to speak on this very, very important topic. So Professor Ho, I think you have given a very good start, and we need to take it forward. And I think the universities have to do their job, but from the professional bodies, we will see that this could be taken over faster, because this has to be done if we are going to really bring in foreign direct investment. Earlier we had cheap labor, now we do not have cheap labor. So we need the skilled professionals who will be able to attract the foreign direct investment. No one has really thought of this, but today they must think of it. Because no point bringing foreign investment if all the people who are going to work there are foreigners. We need to see that our own local professionals, the local scientists and everyone will be able to play this role. And for that, we need to see what is happening outside and what is required in the global market. So I think this was a very, very important address that Professor Ho gave. I think we have to open our eyes. We will take the lead and maybe even try to get the other associations together and do this. So I think once again, I must thank everyone for the full support that they have given, because we've got support from everyone in all these areas. Now we've gone to the SME sector, where that was also, as you saw, the Prime Minister came for the inauguration and helped us. So there are very many areas that we can play a role. Today, all our problems relating to budget deficits, maybe the taking the loans, everything is connected with the cost and management accounting, the financial discipline. So these are project viabilities. All these things have to be looked into, and we have a very, very major role to play in this country. And I'm sure that we will be able to do this. So this long journey we have come, 21 years, is now to be taken forward. And I'm sure that I will get the full support of our Vice President, the Council members, in order that we can take this forward. So once again, Professor Ho, thank you very much for that very, very, extremely innovative and maybe ideas that you gave for everyone to open their eyes. And of course, the Canadian High Commissioner was there because they were able to give us a hand. And one thing that they asked me at the start was, is this going to be a sustainable operation? Of course, I had to tell them, when I set up the AAT, I did not have a single cent, but today it has not only produced the technicians, but also the buildings and other assets that they have are running to billions. So we can do that. But when I saw that the late Lalit Atulat Mudali, who started the the scheme to give scholarships to the university. He said that he's going to set up 4 universities and he's going to put a paper to get 30 to 40 million from the cabinet. But unfortunately, to date, they have not got it. So we have the formula as to how it can be done. And I'm sure as non-profit organization, we are not going to make profit. We use our profits to build the profession. So thank you very much. I think I must thank everyone who has been present here, because your cooperation and assistance. I must also tell that our founder members, 600 at the first meet, I think that was a great boost for us, because there were so many threats and others that were coming, but this gave us the real starting point, and they have supported us. And in return, we have said that all the founder members who are over 70 years will now be taken as members, but they do not have to pay a cent. So I think these are things that we have to help everyone. And I'm sure that today's session will open the eyes of everyone, and it will also enable us to take the next step as to how this skill development could be done, so that the CMA will be able to play a major role in this development effort. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much. And in conclusion, the last word, in a sense, belongs to the Vice President of CMA Sri Lanka and also of the South Asian Federation of Accountants, and just inducted back into office a little while ago, Mr. H.M. Hennayaka Bandara. So we would like to invite your attention as he presents the concluding remarks. Mr. Bandara.
Thank you, Arun. Good evening to all of you. Mr. Hemant Amarasuriya, Senior Advisory Council Member of CMA, Founders Day Orator, Professor Ho, His Excellency David McKinnon, High Commissioner for Canada, President, members of the Council, members of the Institute, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take a couple of minutes to appreciate the contribution made by eminent professionals towards today's program. Business or otherwise, an anniversary is always a milestone to celebrate the achievements and the opportunity to set new goals. In that context, CMA was able to get recognition not only locally, but also internationally within a very short period, as mentioned by our president. We deeply appreciate the valuable contribution made by the founder president, members of the council, members of the staff, and all other stakeholders during the past 21 years. At the same time, induction of newly elected president of any organization is a tradition, and today we inducted not only the newly elected president, but the vice president as well as council members for the term 2021 to 2023. With that note, let me move on to the formal vote of thanks. On behalf of CMA, first, let me thank Mr. Hemant Amarasuriya, former chairman of Sri Lanka Insurance, Singer Sri Lanka, and NDB Group, for readily accepting our invitation and joining with us to induct the newly elected council. Sir, your participation this afternoon is a source of encouragement to our institute as a well-respected corporate leader. Let me also thank Professor Ho Ye, Associate Provost, Skills Future, Singapore Institute of Technology, for accepting our invitation and joining with us from Singapore to deliver the Founders Day Oration on the topic of skills, knowledge, and attitudes needed for the future of work. Professor Ho has contributed immensely for the improvement of the skills and knowledge of our members, and your participation is a tower of strength to all of us, and thank you for delivering an excellent oration. I also would like to thank His Excellency David McKinnon, High Commissioner for Canada, for making his congratulatory remarks at this very important occasion. Finally, I would like to thank all our council members members of the Institute, distinguished invitees, members of member bodies of SAFA, and the staff of CMA for your participation at this very important event. Thank you all. Stay safe and take care. Arun, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So indeed, that concludes the formality of our very special event today, the Founders' Day, which included, as you know, the induction of the new council, as well as the oration, which has been remarkable in the range and scope, as we said. So we hope that competencies will in fact be focused upon and will continue to be developed even as we meet the challenges of the future. So as the saying has it here, Jai Veva to all. May everything work well. Bye for now.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Professor Ho. I think we are very happy that you have been able to connect up and are always with us, and all our council members and vice president who are there. I think we had a number of our delegates from India. We must thank all of them for their presence. And one thing that I should also say is that to build an organization, you need very able staff who have supported us. And right from the beginning, that support has been there. They've been very good. And I must thank all of them, and especially in this COVID situation, where our CEO and the staff have really worked very hard through digital means, what you were mentioning, to ensure that we have overcome this difficulty. So let me thank all of them for the support, our council members, committee members, everyone, because that very many of them who are providing their voluntary service. That's the most prime thing. I think Professor Ho always speaks of that on the voluntary service, that that is something that we should contribute to our younger generation. So thank you very much with that our very, very special event that we had today and the success of the event. And good evening to everyone. And we hope to see you and that the lockdown would maybe disappear fast, but please keep well and keep safe. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Ho. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right.
See you. Take care. Bye.
Professor Ho, we will send your presentation to everyone. Is it okay by you? Right.
Yes, I've sent it to you already. I can be distributed, no problem. All right.
So a
Thank
lot
you.
of them are interested. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
Really appreciate. Thanks for having me. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Then. Thank you, Mr. Kanaratna. You have to do a lot of things now in the new council. Okay. Professor Harendra, yes. Gajendra, everyone is there. I can't see Rutira is gone or Mr. Jayasekara. Right. Okay.
Thank you,
so then.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Professor.
Thank you.
Good night.
Right. So we will now close up. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you then.
Bye.
Right.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Yeah. Just to tell you, we were looking at a special meeting for the strategic plan. So maybe I will check the date. I had a discussion with the Vice President also, and then we'll keep you informed. Maybe these days we are all under lockdown, so I'm sure we should be able to do it on a Saturday or Sunday. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you then. Right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.